In the vast tapestry of the galaxy, where 1,000 civilizations shine like stars against the cosmic dark, there exists a truth that sends shivers down the spines of even the most advanced beings. It is whispered in the shadowed corners of space stations, shared in hushed tones across quantum communication networks, and recorded in the classified archives of every major galactic power. Humans, those seemingly primitive bipeds from a backwater world called Earth, possess something that defies all logic and understanding. When they speak of danger, when they issue warnings with that peculiar intensity in their eyes, the wise listen. The foolish laugh. This is the story of what happens when an entire galactic civilization chose to be foolish. The Zephyrian Empire, masters of 1,000 worlds and wielders of technology that could reshape reality itself, stood at the pinnacle of galactic civilization for over 10 millennia. Their crystalline cities floated among the stars. Their energy beings commanded forces that could ignite or extinguish suns, and their collective consciousness spanned light years of space. When a small human delegation arrived at their capital world with urgent warnings about something stirring in the dark spaces between galaxies, the Zephyrians did what came naturally to a species that had never known defeat. Never faced a threat they couldn't overcome with superior technology and intellect. They laughed. They mocked. They dismissed the humans as paranoid primitives, still clinging to ancient fears of the unknown. But in the depth of space, something ancient was indeed stirring. Something that had been waiting, watching, preparing. Something that understood the one truth the Zephyrians had forgotten in their 10,000 years of dominance. Sometimes, the most primitive species survive, not because they are the strongest or the smartest, but because they remember how to fear the right things. And sometimes, when they try to warn you, it's already too late to listen. The crystalline spires of New Zephyr stretched impossibly high into the violet sky, their surfaces rippling with waves of pure energy that served as both decoration and defense. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had seen many wonders during her 3 years as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, but the Zephyrian capital never failed to take her breath away. The city existed in a state of constant, beautiful flux, its buildings growing and reshaping themselves according to the collective will of its inhabitants. Elena adjusted her formal diplomatic attire, the dark blue fabric stark against the flowing luminescent robes favored by the Zephyrians. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Chen and General Patricia Williams stood in similarly formal dress, their faces masks of professional calm that barely concealed their growing anxiety. They had requested this emergency audience 3 days ago, using channels reserved for galactic-level threats. The response had been disappointing. "The Luminous Council will see you now," announced Keeper Zaltheris, their voice a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Zephyrian's form was barely solid, a shifting constellation of light and energy that hurt to look at directly. "Though I must express their curiosity regarding the nature of your claimed emergency." Elena felt her jaw tighten at the barely concealed condescension in the alien's voice. She had learned to recognize the subtle ways the advanced species of the galaxy expressed their disdain for humanity. The Zephyrians, being among the most technologically advanced, were also among the most dismissive. The council chamber was a sphere of pure crystal, suspended in the center of the city's highest spire. As they entered through a portal that materialized at their approach, Elena felt the familiar sensation of artificial gravity adjusting to accommodate their human physiology. The Zephyrians, at least, were courteous enough to make their guests comfortable, even if they considered them primitives. 7 beings of pure energy floated in a perfect circle around the chamber's center, their forms shifting between various shapes but always maintaining a radiant brilliance that forced Elena to rely on the protective lenses in her diplomatic gear. These were the Luminous Council, the collective leadership of an empire that spanned 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Ambassador Vasquez spoke the central figure, their voice carrying undertones of barely restrained impatience. "You have requested an emergency session to discuss what your initial communication described as an extinction-level threat to all galactic civilization. Our preliminary scans of your home system and surrounding sectors have revealed no such threat. Perhaps you could enlighten us as to the nature of this concern?" Elena stepped forward, her diplomatic training warring with her very human instinct to grab these beings by whatever passed for their shoulders and shake them until they understood. "Honored Council, thank you for granting us this audience. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected anomalous readings from the void between galaxies. Initially dismissed as equipment malfunction, Subsequent investigations have revealed patterns that suggest the presence of an organized intelligence of vast scale and unknown intent. Dr. Chen activated the holographic display he had been carrying, filling the center of the chamber with a three-dimensional map of their local galactic arm. Red indicators mark dozens of locations along the rim. These are the coordinates where we've detected the anomalies, he said, his scientific excitement barely contained despite the gravity of the situation. The readings are consistent with massive gravitational disturbances, but the patterns suggest artificial origin. Something is moving out there, something larger than anything in our current understanding of physics. General Williams stepped forward, her military bearing evident even in the alien environment. Our strategic analysis suggests these disturbances are consistent with the movement of multiple megastructures, each potentially larger than a solar system. They appear to be maintaining formation and moving with clear purpose toward our galaxy. The Council's response was immediate and crushing in its dismissal. Laughter, if the harmonious chiming that filled the chamber could be called that, echoed from every direction. Primitives, whispered one council member to another, though their mental communication was easily intercepted by the chamber's translation systems. Still jumping at shadows in the dark, the central figure's energy form pulsed brighter. Ambassador, we appreciate your concern for galactic security. However, the Zephyrian Empire has maintained watch over this galaxy for 10,000 years. Our sensor networks extend far beyond your capabilities. If a threat of the magnitude you describe existed, we would have detected it millennia ago. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. With respect, honored council, our detection methods may be primitive by your standards, but they have proven effective. Human paranoia, as you've often called it, has saved us from extinction more than once. We're asking you to at least investigate these readings. Another council member floated forward, their forms cycling through shades of blue and silver. Your species has existed for what, a few 100,000 years? You've had spaceflight for barely 2 centuries. The Zephyrian Empire has faced and defeated threats that would have ended your civilization before it began. We have weapons that can crack planets, shields that can contain supernovas, and computational power that spans multiple dimensions. Yet, Elena said carefully, every extinction event on record has come from something unexpected. The Kethmori Empire thought themselves invincible, until the quantum plague consumed them in a matter of days. The astral confluence believed their dimensional barriers made them untouchable until something reached through from another reality entirely. The chamber fell silent except for the subtle energy harmonics that indicated deep consultation among the council members. Finally, the central figure spoke again. You reference historical anomalies, catastrophes that befell species far less advanced than ourselves. The Zephyrian Empire has transcended such vulnerabilities. We have become beings of pure energy, unconstrained by the physical limitations that doomed lesser civilizations. Your human fears may serve you well in your primitive corner of space, but they have no place in discussions of galactic security. Doctor, Chen tried a different approach, his scientific mind seeking common ground. Perhaps you could examine our data with your advanced analysis capabilities. Even if the threat proves illusory, the readings themselves might interest your researchers. The gravitational patterns we've detected are unlike anything in our databases. Keeper Zaltharis materialized beside them, their form rippling with what Elena had learned to recognize as amusement. Doctor, our scientists have computational power that exceeds your entire planet's capacity by several orders of magnitude. If these patterns held any significance, we would have noticed them without requiring primitive sensor readings to point them out. General Williams stepped forward, her military training overriding diplomatic protocol. With all due respect, that attitude has gotten civilizations killed before. Superior technology doesn't make you immune to unknown threats. It often makes you blind to them. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop, though Elena knew that was impossible given the controlled environment. The council members' forms flickered with colors she didn't recognize, their energy signatures spiking in what could only be described as indignation. General Williams, the central figure's voice, carried a sharp edge. You presume to lecture beings who have existed since before your sun ignited about the nature of survival? Your species still fights wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. You have yet to transcend your biological limitations or achieve true unity of consciousness. What could you possibly understand about threats that we cannot? Elena felt the meeting slipping away from them, the carefully constructed diplomatic bridges burning under the weight of mutual incomprehension. She made one last desperate attempt. Honored Council, we're not claiming superiority or suggesting we understand threats better than you do. We're simply asking for caution. If we're wrong, you've lost nothing but a small amount of time. If we're right, if you're right, interrupted another council member, their form now aggressive red and orange. Then beings who can manipulate matter at the quantum level, who can phase between dimensions at will, and who command the power of multiple stars, should be trembling before shadows in empty space. The very suggestion is insulting. The central figure raised what might have been a hand, and the chamber fell silent once more. Ambassador Vasquez, we understand that your species evolves through paranoia and constant vigilance. These traits may serve you well in your current state of development. However, the Zephyrian Empire did not reach its current position by cowering before imaginary threats. Elena's heart sank as she recognized the finality in the council leader's tone. We thank you for bringing your concerns to our attention, the leader continued, and we will file your report in our archives. However, we see no need for action based on the evidence presented. The Zephyrian Empire stands eternal and unchallenged. No force in this galaxy or beyond possesses the power to threaten us. Furthermore, added another council member, their tone suggesting the discussion was over, we would advise your government to focus its limited resources on more immediate concerns. Your recent conflicts with the Serpentis Consortium over mining rights in the Outer Rim would seem a more pressing matter for human attention. Dr. Chen made one final attempt. Could you at least share your sensor data from the Galactic Rim? Perhaps there's something we're missing, some explanation for what we're detecting that your advanced analysis could provide. Keeper Zalferis floated closer, their energy signature radiating what Elena had learned to interpret as condescending patience. Doctor, sharing Zephyrian sensor technology with a Level 3 civilization would violate numerous galactic treaties regarding technological contamination. Beyond that, such data would be incomprehensible to your current level of scientific understanding. The meeting was clearly over. Elena bowed formally, the gesture automatic after years of diplomatic training, even as anger and frustration burned in her chest. Thank you for your time, Honored Council. We hope we have been wrong about the threat. As do we, Ambassador, replied the central figure, though their tone suggested they viewed the humans' concerns as a minor entertainment rather than a genuine worry. Safe travels back to your home system. As the three humans were escorted from the chamber, Elena caught fragments of the Council's ongoing mental communication, the translation systems picking up scattered phrases. Primitive pattern recognition, evolutionary paranoia, amusing but irrelevant.
Outside the spire, waiting for their transport, General Williams broke the heavy silence.
Well, that went about as expected. Dr. Chen stared back at the crystalline city, his scientific mind still processing the dismissal. They wouldn't even look at the data. 10,000 years of supremacy has made them blind to anything outside their experience. Elena activated her secure communication device, establishing a quantum-encrypted link back to Earth. Priority 1 message to the Security Council, she said quietly. The Zephyrians have refused to investigate the anomalies. Recommend we proceed with our own deep space reconnaissance mission. As their transport arrived, a sleek vessel that barely qualified as advanced by Zephyrian standards, but represented the cutting edge of human technology, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The Council's confidence had been absolute, their dismissal complete. But in her years of diplomatic service, she had learned to trust human intuition, especially when it came to sensing danger. The transport lifted off smoothly, carrying them away from New Zephyr and back toward the human sectors of space. Behind them, the crystalline city continued its eternal dance of light and energy, its inhabitants secure in their 10,000-year-old certainty that nothing in the universe could threaten their supremacy. In the depths of space, far beyond the range of even Zephyrian senses, something ancient stirred in response to the Empire's unwavering confidence. It had been waiting for this moment, for a civilization so advanced that it believed itself invincible. The Zephyrians' dismissal of the human warnings was not unexpected. It was exactly what had been hoped for. The hunt could now begin in earnest. As Elena's transport entered hyperspace for the journey home, she found herself remembering an old human saying, "Pride goes before a fall." She hoped she was wrong about the readings, hoped the Zephyrians were right, and the anomalies were meaningless. But deep in her bones, in the primitive survival instincts that had carried humanity through ice ages and extinction events, she felt the approaching shadow of something vast and hungry. The Zephyrians had laughed at human warnings. Soon they would learn why laughter, in the face of the unknown, was always premature. Captain Sarah Mitchell had commanded deep space reconnaissance vessels for 15 years, but she had never taken a ship as far from home as the HSV Defiant was now traveling. 3 weeks had passed since they'd left the outer marker buoys of human space behind, heading toward the coordinates Dr. Chen's team had identified as the source of the gravitational anomalies. The ship's crew of 43 represented the best humanity had to offer. Scientists, engineers, marines, and specialists handpicked for what might be the most important mission in human history. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Torres from the sensor station, his voice tight with concentration. "We're approaching the outer perimeter of the anomaly field. The readings are significant." Sarah moved to stand behind the sensor operator, her eyes scanning the displays that showed a three-dimensional representation of local space. What she saw made her stomach clench with a mixture of fear and awe. "Jesus Christ," she whispered. Then caught herself. "Clarify significant, Torres." "Ma'am, the gravitational disturbances we detected from Earth were just the outermost edge of whatever this is. We're reading massive objects arranged in what appears to be a perimeter formation, each one roughly the size of Earth's moon, spaced at intervals of approximately 50,000 kilometers." Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the mission's lead scientist and Dr. Chen's former student, looked up from her workstation with wide eyes. "Captain, if those readings are accurate, we're looking at a construct that spans several light hours in diameter. The amount of matter involved would require the complete dismantling of multiple solar systems." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Sarah had been in combat, had faced situations where death seemed certain, but this was different. This was the unknown, on a scale that human minds weren't equipped to process. "Any signs of active scanning or communication attempts directed at us?" she asked. Torres shook his head. "Nothing on any frequency we can detect. Whatever's out there, it's either not aware of us or doesn't consider us worth responding to." Chief Marine Officer Colonel James Rodriguez stepped up to the tactical display. "Recommendation, Captain? My gut says we should maintain maximum distance and gather what intelligence we can from here." Sarah understood the colonel's caution, but they hadn't come this far to turn back at the first sign of the unknown. "Negative, Colonel. We need to get closer, get better readings. Whatever this is, Earth needs to know about it. Take us in slowly, Torres. Maximum stealth systems, minimal emissions." The Defiant crept forward through space, her advanced stealth technology borrowed and adapted from captured alien designs, making her nearly invisible to most detection methods. As they drew closer to the perimeter of the anomaly field, the true scale of what they were approaching became clear. "My God," breathed Dr. Walsh. "Captain, these aren't natural objects. The surface composition readings are showing manufactured materials, metals and composites that don't appear in any database. This is definitely artificial." The main display shifted to show enhanced visual imagery of the nearest construct. What they saw defied easy description, a structure that seemed to be part fortress, part machine, and part something else entirely. Its surface was covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, designs that seemed to shift and change when observed, creating an optical illusion that left several crew members feeling nauseated.
"There's something wrong with the visual feeds," reported Torres.
"The computer keeps trying to focus on different aspects of these structures, like it can't decide what it's actually seeing." Dr. Walsh ran additional scans, her excitement overriding her fear. "It's not a malfunction. These constructs are designed to be perceptually confusing. The surface patterns create a psychological effect that makes them difficult for organic minds to process. It's like looking at an optical illusion designed by something that doesn't think the way we do." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Something that doesn't think the way we do. Doctor, are you saying these were built by a non-biological intelligence?" "I'm saying they were built by something that understands biological psychology well enough to weaponize perception itself against organic minds. Look at the crew's biometric readings. Just looking at these things is causing elevated stress responses, disorientation, and in some cases mild nausea."
As if to prove her point, Ensign Parker at the communications station suddenly gripped his console, his face pale and sweating.
"Captain, I feel like I'm going to be sick. There's something about those shapes that's making my eyes water." "Turn away from the display, Ensign," Sarah ordered. "Dr. Walsh, can you filter the visual feeds somehow?" "Working on it, Captain. I'm applying a digital overlay that should neutralize the perceptual effects. The filtered images were easier to look at, but no less disturbing. The constructs were clearly artificial, but their design principles were unlike anything in human or known alien architecture. They seemed to follow rules of physics that human science didn't fully understand, with surfaces that curved in directions that shouldn't exist, and structures that appeared to be larger on the inside than the outside." "Captain," Torres called out, his voice urgent. "Long-range sensors are detecting movement. Something big is coming our way." Sarah moved to the tactical station, her command training taking over. Details, Lieutenant Commander. Object approaching from the direction of the galactic rim, speed approximately 0.7 light speed. Mass readings are... That can't be right. What are the readings, Torres? Ma'am, according to sensors, the approaching object has a mass roughly equivalent to Earth's moon, but it's moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The amount of energy required to accelerate something that massive... Doctor, Walsh looked up from her calculations, her face pale. Captain, the energy requirements for that kind of acceleration would require the complete conversion of matter equivalent to several gas giants. We're dealing with technology that makes even the Zephyrians look primitive. The approaching object appeared on the main display as a dot of light that grew larger with each passing second. As it drew closer, its true nature became apparent. Another construct, similar to the perimeter structures but mobile, and clearly heading directly for them. Stealth systems are holding, reported Torres. No indication that we've been detected. But even as he spoke, the approaching construct began to decelerate, its trajectory shifting to intercept their position with mechanical precision. They know we're here, Colonel Rodriguez said grimly. Stealth or no stealth, something that advanced isn't fooled by our technology. Sarah made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. All stop, bring us to a complete halt, and power down all non-essential systems. Let's see what they want. The construct approached with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. As it drew closer, the crew could see that its surface was covered in the same perceptually disorienting patterns as the perimeter structures, but this one also displayed what appeared to be communication arrays, sensor clusters, and other technological features whose purposes could only be guessed at. Captain? Torres reported, his voice barely above a whisper. We're being scanned. Whatever they're using, it's penetrating our hull like it's not even there. They're getting detailed readings on our internal structure, crew biometrics, computer systems, everything.
Any hostile actions? None detected, ma'am.
They're just studying us. The construct came to a stop approximately 10 kilometers away, close enough that it filled the entire main display. For several minutes, nothing happened. The two vessels hung in space, one a tiny human creation and the other a manifestation of technology beyond current understanding, engaged in an interspecies staring contest that neither side seemed willing to break. Then, without warning, the communication system activated. The sound that filled the bridge wasn't quite speech and wasn't quite music. It was something in between, a complex pattern of tones and harmonics that conveyed meaning without using words. Somehow, impossibly, every crew member understood the message with perfect clarity, as if the communication was being transmitted directly into their minds rather than through their ears. The message was simple, devastating, and delivered with absolute certainty. Small ones from the young star. We have been waiting for your species to venture into the deep waters between galaxies. Your warnings to the energy children have been noted and recorded. Their response has been evaluated and found acceptable for our purposes. Dr. Walsh grabbed her recording equipment, her scientific instincts overriding her fear. Captain, this communication method is unlike anything in the databases. They're somehow transmitting concepts directly to our brains, bypassing language entirely. The alien communication continued. You will observe. You will record. You will return to your small worlds and prepare your species for what follows. The energy children's contempt for your warnings has made them vulnerable. The harvest begins now. Sarah found her voice, forcing herself to respond, despite the overwhelming presence she could feel pressing against her mind.
Who are you?
What do you want with the Zephyrian Empire? The response came with undertones of amusement that felt alien and wrong. We are the gardeners. We plant. We tend. We harvest. The energy children have grown too large, too confident. Their consciousness spans light years. Their technology bends reality to their will. They believe themselves beyond all threat. This makes them perfect. A new display activated on the construct's surface, showing images that made the human crew recoil in horror. Civilizations being consumed, not destroyed but transformed, their technology and consciousness absorbed into something vast and hungry. Entire star systems being deconstructed with surgical precision. Their matter reformed into new constructs that serve the gardeners' incomprehensible purposes. The energy children dismissed your warnings because they believe superiority grants immunity. This is the flaw we have been waiting for them to develop. Advanced civilizations always follow the same pattern. They transcend their physical limitations, achieve technological supremacy, and then convince themselves that nothing can threaten them. At this point, they become useful to us. Sarah felt sick. but she forced herself to ask the question that needed asking. What about humanity? What about the other younger species? The young species who retain their caution, who remember that the universe is vast and full of threats beyond their understanding. These are not ready for harvest. You will survive what comes next if you are wise. You will learn from what happens to the energy children. You will grow strong and confident and certain of your superiority. And, when you do, we will harvest you as well. The construct began to move away, but the communication continued. Return to your worlds, small ones. Tell your leaders what you have seen. Prepare your defenses, if it makes you feel better. Watch what happens to those who believe themselves invincible. Learn from their mistake. As the alien vessel accelerated away from them, moving at speeds that should have torn it apart, Dr. Walsh looked at her readings with growing horror. Captain, the energy signatures I'm detecting, they're moving towards Zephyrian space. Sarah stared at the tactical display, watching as dozens of similar constructs appeared on long-range sensors, all converging on the heart of the Galactic Empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. The Zephyrians had dismissed human warnings with laughter and contempt, secure in their belief that their advanced technology made them untouchable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Set course for Zephyrian space, Sarah ordered. Maximum speed. Captain, Taurus looked confused. Shouldn't we return to Earth with this intelligence? Sarah shook her head, her face grim. We're going to do what the gardeners told us to do. We're going to observe. We're going to record. And then we're going to return to Earth with proof of what happens when an advanced civilization becomes too confident in its own superiority. The Defiant turned toward the heart of Zephyrian space, racing to witness what might be the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. Behind them, the gardeners' constructs moved through space with implacable purpose, carrying out a harvest that had been planned for millennia. The humans had tried to warn the Zephyrians. Now they would watch the price of that warning being ignored. The Zephyrian border monitoring station Eternal Vigilance had watched the approaches to the Empire for 3,000 years without detecting a single credible threat. Its crystalline sensors extended their reach across multiple dimensions, capable of detecting the movement of a single atom across light years of space. The station's AI consciousness, a collective of 12 ascended Zephyrian minds, processed information with computational power that exceeded most planetary civilizations. When the first Gardener construct appeared at the edge of their sensor range, the station's response was measured and dismissive. Unknown vessel detected approaching from Galactic Rim, reported Consciousness Prime Velfar to the Inner Spiral Command. Configuration unknown, no matching profiles in Imperial databases. Single vessel, estimated mass approximately lunar equivalent. Proceeding to standard identification protocols. The response from Command was immediate and confident. Acknowledged. Eternal vigilance. Maintain standard watch protocols. Single vessel poses no credible threat to border security. What the station's sensors couldn't detect was that 37 identical constructs had already passed through their monitoring perimeter, using stealth technology that, operated by bending space-time around them, making them effectively exist in a pocket dimension that overlapped normal space without truly being part of it. The Gardeners had been studying Zephyrian technology for centuries, preparing for this moment when the Empire's confidence would blind them to innovative approaches to warfare. Consciousness Prime Velfar initiated standard first contact procedures, broadcasting a warning message across all known communication frequencies. Unknown vessel, you are entering sovereign Zephyrian space. Identify yourself and state your intentions or be fired upon. The response came not through their communication systems, but directly into the merged consciousness of the station's AI collective. The sensation was unlike anything they had experienced in 3 millennia of existence. Alien thoughts pressing against their mental barriers with casual, overwhelming power. Energy children of the Crystal Empire, your time of transcendence has ended. Your consciousness will be preserved. Your knowledge will be absorbed. Your resistance will be futile. The 12 merged minds of Eternal Vigilance recoiled in shock and confusion. No known technology could penetrate their mental defenses. No species in the galaxy possessed the capability to make direct mind-to-mind contact with ascended Zephyrian consciousness.
Impossible transmission detected, Velfar reported to command, though his mental voice carried undertones of uncertainty for the first time in centuries.
Unknown vessel appears to have achieved direct neural interface with station AI systems. Recommend immediate tactical response. But even as the report was sent, Eternal Vigilance's sensors began detecting the true scope of what they were facing. One by one, 37 additional massive constructs materialized out of apparently empty space, surrounding the monitoring station in a perfect sphere formation. Multiple unknown vessels detected. Thelfar's report became increasingly urgent. 38 contacts total, each matching mass readings of initial vessel. Unknown stealth technology allowed undetected approach. Recommend immediate fleet response. The constructs began to move with synchronized precision that spoke of a collective intelligence coordinating their actions. As they did, Eternal Vigilance's sensors detected energy patterns that defied every known law of physics. The constructs weren't just massive, they were channeling power from somewhere else entirely, tapping into energy sources that existed outside normal space-time. Command, this is Eternal Vigilance requesting immediate emergency support. Velthar broadcasted, his 3,000-year confidence finally beginning to crack. We are facing technology beyond current threat assessment parameters. The response from Inner Spiral Command carried the same dismissive confidence that had characterized Zephyrian responses to threats for millennia. Eternal Vigilance maintains standard defensive protocols. 7th Fleet is en route to your position, estimated arrival 6 hours. Unknown vessels likely represent a previously uncontacted species attempting intimidation tactics. Velthar wanted to argue, to explain that what they were facing was clearly beyond standard threat parameters, but 3,000 years of Imperial certainty had programmed him to trust in Zephyrian superiority. If Command said the threat was manageable, then it must be manageable. The first Gardner construct moved closer to the station, and Eternal Vigilance's defensive systems automatically activated. Plasma barriers that could contain the output of a small star formed around the crystalline structure, while offensive systems that could crack moons began targeting the approaching vessel. The construct ignored the defensive barriers entirely, passing through them as if they didn't exist. When the station's offensive weapons fired beams of concentrated stellar energy that should have vaporized any known material, the construct absorbed the attacks and seemed to grow stronger from them. Impossible, Velthar whispered to his fellow consciousnesses. Our weapons are having no effect. The barriers aren't even slowing them down. The lead construct's surface began to shift and change, revealing structures that hurt to perceive directly. Mechanical tendrils extended from its hull, but these weren't ordinary mechanical devices. They moved through space in ways that violated basic geometry, reaching the station by traveling through dimensions that Zephyrian science knew existed but had never learned to access. When the tendrils made contact with Eternal Vigilance's hull, something unprecedented happened. The station's crystalline structure began to change, its matter being reorganized at the molecular level by technology that operated according to principles the Zephyrians had never even theorized. They're not trying to destroy us. Velthar realized with growing horror. They're converting us. The other consciousnesses in the collective tried to disconnect from the station's main systems, to preserve themselves by abandoning their physical housing, but they found their escape routes blocked by alien intrusions into their very thoughts. The Gardner technology wasn't just superior, it was designed specifically to counter the Zephyrian method of consciousness transfer. How? Whispered Consciousness Zartel, her mental voice filled with despair. How do they know our systems so well? How do they know exactly how to counter our defenses? The answer came in the form of additional memories flooding their collective awareness, memories that didn't belong to any Zephyrian. They saw themselves as the Gardeners saw them, an advanced civilization that had followed a predictable evolutionary path, developing the exact technologies and capabilities that the Gardeners needed for their own purposes. The Zephyrians had been watched, studied, and cultivated for millennia. Every advancement in their technology, every development in their consciousness evolution, had been observed and catalogued by intelligences that thought on timescales measured in geological epochs. You were grown for this purpose. The alien thoughts pressed into their minds. Your technology, your consciousness structures, your very evolution has been guided to make you suitable for integration. You are not the first empire we have harvested. You will not be the last. Velthar felt his individual consciousness beginning to dissolve as Gardner technology integrated itself into his mental processes. But before his sense of self was completely subsumed, he managed to send one final message to Inner Spiral Command. This is Eternal Vigilance. Final transmission. Unknown hostiles possess technology beyond all threat assessment parameters. They have been studying us. They know our systems better than we do. Fleet response will be ineffective. Recommend immediate evacuation of core worlds. The message reached Inner Spiral Command just as the HSV Defiant arrived at the edge of the battle zone. Its crew watching in stunned horror as one of the galaxy's most advanced defensive installations was consumed and converted in a matter of minutes. Dear God, Captain Mitchell whispered, watching the real-time feeds from their hidden position behind a sensor-blocking asteroid. It's not even a battle. They're just taking it apart. Dr. Walsh's instruments were recording everything, capturing data that would reshape humanity's understanding of what was possible in the universe. Captain, the energy patterns I'm reading... The gardeners aren't just using superior technology. They're using physics that we don't even have theories for. They're manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself. On the tactical display, they could see the Zephyrian 7th Fleet approaching at maximum speed. 12 massive warships that each carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet. The fleet's admiral, Supreme Commander Keth Randor, had personally led victories against 17 different species attempting to challenge Zephyrian supremacy. Captain Mitchell found herself hoping that somehow the Zephyrian fleet would prove capable of mounting an effective defense. The Empire might be arrogant, but they were still a galactic civilization, with billions of lives at stake. The fleet arrived with characteristic Zephyrian confidence, immediately deploying into attack formation and demanding the surrender of the unknown vessels. The response was swift and devastating. The Gardner constructs didn't fight the Zephyrian fleet so much as demonstrate the irrelevance of their weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids were absorbed and converted into useful energy. Quantum torpedoes that could disrupt matter at the subatomic level simply ceased to exist when they encountered Gardner defensive fields. Dimensional disruptors that had cracked the homeworld of the last species to challenge the Empire were reflected back at the ships that fired them. Within minutes, the 7th Fleet was not destroyed, but transformed, its ships' crystalline structures being converted into new Gardner constructs, while their crews' consciousnesses were absorbed into the collective that operated them. Supreme Commander Keth Randor's final transmission was broadcasted across emergency frequencies to every Zephyrian installation within 100 light-years. All ships, all stations, this is 7th Fleet Command. We are facing an enemy that has turned our own technology against us. They know our systems, our weaknesses, our capabilities. This is not random hostile contact. This is a planned harvest. They have been watching us. They have been preparing for this moment. Our advancement has not made us stronger. It has made us suitable for their purposes. By the light of eternal crystal, I recommend immediate, systematic evacuation of all border systems. This enemy cannot be fought with conventional military force. The transmission cut off as Keth Randor's flagship completed its conversion. The commander's consciousness absorbed into alien systems that would use his knowledge and experience to make the next phase of the harvest more efficient. Dr. Walsh looked up from her readings, her face pale with the implications of what they were witnessing. Captain, according to my analysis, the Gardeners aren't just conquering the Zephyrian Empire, they're learning from it. Every ship they convert, every installation they absorb, is making them more effective against Zephyrian technology. It's like watching an immune system adapt to overcome resistance, she continued. But in reverse, instead of the body learning to fight off an infection, the infection is learning to perfectly exploit every aspect of the body's defenses. Colonel Rodriguez shook his head grimly. This isn't warfare as we understand it. This is agricultural harvesting on a galactic scale. The Gardeners didn't come here to conquer territorial resources. They came to harvest an entire civilization. As they watched, more Gardner constructs appeared throughout the Zephyrian border regions, each one moving with the precise coordination of a collective intelligence that operated on a scale humans could barely comprehend. The harvest was beginning in earnest, and the most technologically advanced empire in the galaxy was proving as helpless before it as weak before a combine harvester. Captain Mitchell realized with cold certainty that humanity was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, the systematic consumption of a level 5 civilization by something that operated according to principles beyond current understanding. The Zephyrians had mocked human warnings, had dismissed the anomaly readings with laughter and contempt. Now they were paying the ultimate price for their arrogance. Their advanced technology turned against them by an enemy that had been planning this harvest for longer than their empire had existed. The question that haunted Captain Mitchell as she watched the Gardner constructs spread through Zephyrian space was simple and terrifying. If beings this advanced could be harvested like crops, what hope did humanity have when their time came? The Luminous Council convened in emergency session as reports flooded in from across the Outer Rim. What had begun as isolated attacks on border installations had evolved into a systematic dismantling of the Zephyrian Empire's outer defenses. In the crystalline chamber, where they had so confidently dismissed human warnings just weeks before, the 7 energy beings who ruled an empire spanning 3 spiral arms now faced the first existential threat their civilization had encountered in 10 millennia. The pattern is unmistakable, reported military coordinator Valtanis, his energy form flickering with stress patterns that hadn't been seen since the ancient Kethmori Wars. 17 border systems have gone silent in the past 72 hours. Each follows the same sequence. Sensor contact with unknown vessels, brief engagement, then complete communication loss. High Counselor Zarthemis, the eldest and most experienced of the ruling collective, pulsed with deep blue energy that indicated profound concern. Have we identified the nature of these hostiles, their technology base, their objectives? Initial analysis suggests technology that operates outside our understanding of physics, Valtanis replied. The few transmissions we've received before communication loss indicate weapons and defensive systems that appear to manipulate fundamental forces in ways we've never theorized. Keeper Zalthiris materialized in the chamber's center, his form more solid than usual as crisis protocols demanded clear communication. High Council, I must report additional disturbing intelligence. Long-range reconnaissance probes have detected the construction of massive installations in former border territories. The hostiles are not merely conquering our systems, they are converting them for unknown purposes. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zephyrian Empire had faced aggressive neighbors before, had dealt with species that sought to claim their territories or steal their technology. But this was something new, an enemy that appeared to be systematically harvesting their civilization rather than simply conquering it. What of the Inner Rim fleets? Asked Councillor Marvendis. Surely our concentrated military strength can mount an effective counter-offensive. Valthanis's energy signature darkened. High Council, I must report the preliminary engagement results have been unprecedented. The 3rd and 5th battle groups attempted coordinated strikes against enemy concentrations in the Kereth system 3 hours ago. He paused, his form flickering with what could only be described as confusion and fear. Neither fleet exists anymore. Not destroyed, High Council, converted. Long-range sensors detect ships matching their energy signatures operating under hostile control. The council chamber erupted in harmonics of disbelief and alarm. The concept of Zephyrian vessels being turned against the Empire was beyond their understanding of warfare. Their ships were extensions of their pilot's consciousness, protected by quantum encryption that made unauthorized access theoretically impossible. How? Demanded Councillor Thakvarin. Our neural interfaces are secured by 10,000 years of advancement. Our ships are literal extensions of our pilots' minds. No external force can seize control of Zephyrian vessels. Yet it has happened, Valtanis replied grimly. Analysis of the final transmission suggests the hostiles possess technology that can directly interface with ascended consciousness. They are not breaking our security. They are subsuming it entirely. Zarthemis floated to the chamber's center, his ancient consciousness drawing on millennia of experience, leading the Empire through various crises. What of the human warnings? The primitive readings they presented to us? Zaltharis answered reluctantly. High Council, correlation analysis indicates the anomalies detected by human sensors correspond exactly to the locations where hostile forces first appeared. Their data, primitive though it was, accurately predicted the initial points of incursion. The implication hung heavy in the chamber's energy-charged atmosphere. The advanced Zephyrian Empire, with sensor networks spanning multiple dimensions and computational power that exceeded most civilizations, had missed signs of the approaching threat that primitive human technology had detected. The humans tried to warn us, whispered Councillor Philandra, her energy form dimming with what humans would recognize as shame. We dismissed them as paranoid primitives afraid of shadows in empty space. Irrelevant, Zarthemis declared, though his tone carried less certainty than his words implied. What matters now is mounting an effective defense. What assets remain under Imperial control? Veltahinus accessed the military networks, his consciousness interfacing with command systems across the Empire. What he found sent shockwaves through his energy matrix. High Council, hostile forces have penetrated significantly deeper into Imperial space than our communications indicate. They appear to be advancing along multiple vectors simultaneously, targeting key infrastructural nodes with strategic precision. Clarify strategic precision, ordered Zarthemis. They are not attacking randomly, or seeking to inflict maximum casualties. They are specifically targeting our consciousness transfer nodes, our quantum computational centers, and our advanced manufacturing facilities. They appear to understand our infrastructure better than many of our own military planners. The horrifying truth was beginning to dawn on the Council. They weren't facing an external invasion by an unknown species. They were being systematically harvested by an intelligence that had studied them so thoroughly it could predict their responses and exploit their weaknesses with surgical precision. Recommendation, Zarthemis said grimly. Full mobilization of inner system defenses. If we cannot stop them at the borders, we make our stand at the core worlds. But even as the orders went out, activating defense systems that hadn't been used in millennia. Reports continued to flood in from across the Empire. The Gardner advance wasn't slowing, it was accelerating. Each system they consumed provided them with additional resources and knowledge, making their assault on the next target more efficient. On New Zephyr itself, the capital world where human diplomats had been dismissed with such confidence, signs of impending disaster were becoming impossible to ignore. The crystalline cities that had stood for thousands of years began implementing evacuation protocols, as civilian populations faced the unthinkable prospect of fleeing their homeworld. In the higher spires of the government complex, emergency session followed emergency session as the Empire's leadership struggled to comprehend how their 10,000-year dominion was crumbling in a matter of days. "The pattern is clear," reported Chief Analyst Morthekis during one such session. "The hostiles possess detailed knowledge of our technological development, our strategic capabilities, and our psychological profiles. This level of intelligence could only have been gathered through extensive long-term observation." "You're suggesting we've been watched," Zarthanis said slowly. "For how long?" "Analysis of their targeting priorities suggests observation spanning millennia. Possibly since the early phases of our technological transcendence." The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest achievements, their transformation from biological beings to energy consciousness, their mastery of quantum physics, their development of reality-manipulating technology, all of it had been observed and catalogued by an intelligence planning their eventual harvest. "We have been cultivated," Zarthamis realized with growing horror. "Our advancement was not conquest over the universe. It was preparation for this moment." As if summoned by this revelation, the Council Chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. The familiar harmonics of the alien communication method filled the space, carrying concepts directly into their energy-based consciousness. "Energy children of the Crystal Empire, your understanding dawns as predicted. You begin to comprehend the purpose of your advancement." The Council members recoiled from the alien contact but found they could not block the transmission. The Gardner technology was sophisticated enough to interface directly with their consciousness without their consent. "We have observed your species for 7,000 of your years. We guided your development through careful intervention, ensuring you would achieve the specific combination of technological advancement and consciousness evolution that makes you suitable for integration. Your transformation from biological entities to energy beings was not your achievement. It was our cultivation reaching its intended conclusion." Zarthamis forced himself to respond, though the effort felt like trying to speak while drowning. "What do you want from us? What is the purpose of this harvest?" The response carried undertones of satisfaction and patient explanation. "You are components in a greater design. Your consciousness structures, perfected through millennia of advancement, will serve as processing nodes in computational systems beyond your current understanding. Your technological achievements will be integrated into our collective capabilities. You will continue to exist, but as part of something larger than your individual empire. Your knowledge will be preserved. Your experiences will contribute to understanding that spans galaxies. This is not destruction. This is transcendence to a higher level of existence." Councillor Marvendes managed to project a response. "And if we refuse? If we resist this integration?" The alien amusement was palpable. "Resistance is irrelevant. You cannot fight what you have become part of. Your technology, your consciousness structures, your very method of existence has been designed to be compatible with our systems. Resistance only delays the inevitable." As if to prove their point, the communication was suddenly cut off, replaced by tactical displays showing the true scope of the Gardner advance. The hostile forces weren't approaching the core systems. They had already surrounded them. While the Council had been meeting in emergency session, the enemy had been systematically positioning themselves for the final phase of the harvest. "Impossible," breathed Veltanis. "Our long-range sensors show no such concentration of hostile forces." "Because they exist in dimensional spaces adjacent to our reality," Morthekis reported, his analysis finally catching up to the scope of their situation. "They can move through areas we cannot detect, emerge from directions we cannot monitor. Our entire understanding of strategic positioning is obsolete." The final phase began without warning or ceremony. Gardner constructs materialized throughout the core system simultaneously, appearing inside defensive perimeters that should have been impenetrable, bypassing weapon systems that should have detected and destroyed them long before they reached striking distance. New Zephyr's planetary defenses, designed to repel fleets and withstand stellar-scale weapons, proved useless against an enemy that operated according to different physical laws. The planet's crystalline cities began to change as Gardner technology interfaced with their structures, converting matter and energy into forms that served alien purposes. The HSV Defiant, maintaining its hidden position at the edge of the system, recorded everything as humanity's diplomatic vessel became an unwitting witness to the fall of galactic civilization. Captain Mitchell watched in stunned silence as the most advanced empire in known space was systematically consumed in less than a week.
"They're not even putting up effective resistance," Dr. Walsh observed, her scientific training overriding her horror at the spectacle.
It's like watching a computer virus take over a network. The Zephyrians' advancement has made them more vulnerable, not less. Colonel Rodriguez checked his tactical displays one final time. "Captain, we need to get this information back to Earth. Humanity needs to understand what's coming." But as the Defiant prepared to leave the dying Zephyrian system, Captain Mitchell couldn't shake the memory of the gardener's words during their first encounter. "You will grow strong and confident and certain of your superiority, and when you do, we will harvest you as well." The Zephyrians had mocked human warnings about the darkness between galaxies. Now their empire was being consumed by that very darkness, their 10,000 years of supremacy ending not in glorious battle, but in systematic harvesting by an intelligence that had been planning this moment since before their civilization had learned to harness fire. The ultimate price of their arrogance was not defeat. It was becoming part of something that would use their knowledge and power to harvest the next civilization that grew confident enough to believe itself invincible.